horns are back. I love it.
Why not? Get excited.
Love it. Absolutely. What's going on, Playmakers? Jesus. Playmakers. It is Tuesday, January 26, 2021. You are watching the Working the Wire podcast. I am your host, Big Play Blake. You can give me a follow over on Twitter at Big Play Blake. The gentleman to my left, your right, looking very corporate this evening. The advocate for avocado toast, the sultan of social distancing, the who's who of Whole30, Big Play Beats. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Our standard for corporate feels a little low here if it's just a collared shirt.
If it's got buttons and a collar, it's corporate.
All right, I'll take it. Take it.
Buttons and a collar, it is corporate. Guys, as always, give us a follow over on Twitter at WTW_podcast. That's where the show goes out each and every week, Tuesdays at 9:30. Obviously, during the season, we offer our last-minute Sunday advice. And we also use our hashtag AskWTW. If you have any questions, you see that right below here. So, without further ado, Michael, let's hop right in. The Super Bowl is set, my friend. The Tampa Bay Bucks will be the first team in NFL history to host the game in their own stadium, as the Kansas City Chiefs will come to town for Super Bowl LIV. I really feel like there was a missed opportunity to have this game in Miami. Club live, Super Bowl live. I digress. Mike, this game's going to feature 5 players that finished in the top 10 at their position in fantasy football. Tom Brady and Mahomes, or in the top 10 rather. Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes finished 6th and 3rd respectively. Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans were 2nd and 7th, and Travis Kelce was obviously 1st in fantasy points this season at their position. Obviously Kelce being the only one that was tops. Mike, we've regurgitated it on this show 100 times that there is NFL good and there is fantasy good, or we can even use elite in this conversation. So does this prove our point, or does this disprove our point?
I think it proves our point, and the reason I say that there just is a difference. Oftentimes they go hand in hand. So when you look at Kansas City, and I think in fantasy, this is especially when you have an elite offense, when they can just put up points, score at will. You know, sure. You look at teams, you look at Kelce, Mahomes, Hill, they're the prime examples. It just was really interesting, and we kind of dove a little deeper into it, Blake. One of the things I looked at, the position that, like, it didn't seem to matter how good your team is, so NFL elite versus fantasy elite, was actually running back for me. Your top 10 were Kamara, Cook, Henry, Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, James Robinson, Josh Jacobs, and Ezekiel Elliott. Only 4 of those top 10 made the playoffs, and to me, that list would surprise you in most years.
Sure. No, and it would. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And the thing I noticed, Mike, and it's kind of echoes what you just said, is there's only 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 5 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends at the top. We just mentioned the top 10, right? At their positions that did make the playoffs. So 35% of the guys in the top 10 in every position did make it. So I mean, I'm kind of torn. I don't know if it completely proves it one way or another, right? Yep. And I think when you look at positions like the quarterback position, obviously it's a top-heavy position. You know, the drop-off's pretty significant after the first half, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think it leaves us in limbo. I don't know that it necessarily proves our point, but it also doesn't disprove our point because there's a lot of guys that had really good seasons, like a James Robinson, who we'll talk about here in a few minutes, that didn't make the playoffs. So it wasn't even close to the playoffs. Yeah. So it just remains to be seen that there's definitely a difference, but maybe that gap, at least in my mind, has shrunk a little bit.
Okay. So what's interesting to me is the drop-off we were seeing. You saw the top 2 or 3 at each position, and oftentimes those guys made playoffs. I mean, these are absolute all-stars who had great years, right? Like running back, you saw from the top 3 to 4th place, there was an 80-point drop-off to David Montgomery in 4th. Wide receiver, there's a 40-point separation from Tyreek Hill, who's 3rd, to DeAndre Hopkins in 4th, not a playoff team. David Montgomery and the Bears, were they really a playoff team? They weren't very well-rounded. They weren't a very strong offense. They made it in, but should they have in different years? And then you look at tight ends. It is a huge drop-off after the top 2, right? Travis Kelce over 300. That's a wide receiver level points on the season. And then Darren Waller at 273. And then you drop all the way down to the 170, 160 range with Logan Thomas, Tanyan, Hawkinson, and Andrews. And those guys had decent tight end seasons, but that difference right there, right? It's huge. So I think, and these are guys that if you ask me, I would want them, and there's a reason why they're getting their Darren Waller and Travis Kelce. They're getting those touches. They're getting those targets. So, yeah, I think there is a difference, but your point of it, it's splitting hairs is kind of putting it, it kind of keeps the debate going. I mean, this season definitely puts it right in the middle there.
Yep. No, you're right, my friend. Mike, let's move on. Adam Schefter sent out an interesting tweet yesterday. Not sure if you caught this, but he sent something out stating that he expected at least 18 teams to change their quarterback situation this offseason. Now, obviously, that means through the draft or through free agency or trading, whatever the case may be. But some notable players, Mike, he mentioned maybe on the move or not in their same situation. He mentioned a guy like Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, and obviously the mysteriously quotable Aaron Rodgers. And, Mike, we'll save our top candidates for change for later in the show when we do our offseason quarterback carousel. But, Mike, is there any chance we see this many quarterback changes this offseason?
What was it, 18? No.
18. That's over half.
No way. Like, I think that's absolutely bonkers. Yeah, I'm with you, Blake.
The thing is, Mike, well, here's the thing. One, absolutely not. And he's insinuating teams like the Cowboys, the Packers, the Steelers, the Rams will be changing their starting quarterbacks, and I just don't see it, Mike. The incumbent quarterbacks are good. They're not bad quarterbacks. Say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger, he's still a Hall of Fame quarterback, right? So, and some of these guys have contracts that make them untradeable, like Goff.
Yes, $22 million dead money, right?
Right. So no, same situation. You look at a guy like Carson Wentz. Yes, should he be traded? Yes. Should he work out something with the Eagles to get traded? Yes. Will it happen? Likely not. He's going to take the bag and sit there and hold a clipboard. I would. Yeah. So I don't think it's been. I think Adam's being a little dramatic when he says 18. Obviously, that was. I don't want to use the C word, clickbait, but
it feels like it, right?
It was one of those things where I think there's just been so much, I don't want to say negativity, but so many reports of hostility between quarterbacks and their franchises right now. You look at somebody like the Rodgers situation where every day the story changes, right? Here's the thing, Mike. It's been a frustrating year on and off the field, right? With everything that's been going on, whether that's been the pandemic, politics, the world in general, right? It's been a tough year for everybody. Give everybody their much-needed time off. Blow off some steam. Cooler heads are going to prevail here. Guys like the Packers, they're not moving away from Aaron Rodgers. He just had an MVP season.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably an MVP season. We'll see who actually gets the award. But, these teams aren't just going to let guys walk. And everybody wants to point back to the Favre situation in Green Bay, which I think is similar but different. So, and Favre was a little bit further down the line. So, I don't see as many. I definitely see a lot. I think more than usual, but not 18. No way. Yeah.
I just can't see that happening at all. A part that we haven't even talked about, and I think we'll hit a little more later, is the cap. It's going to shrink, right? Going into the season, I would say post-Super Bowl, pre-everything else, everyone had expected this to be a huge season for quarterbacks, and now as that cap sinks, what I think will be interesting is that you might see a lot of one-year deals, a lot of little things like that going down this season. We'll see. We'll talk about that.
No, I think you're right. I think you'll see a lot of those one-year deals, kind of, I don't want to say prove-it deals, but Band-Aid deals is what I like to call them. So,
yeah.
And speaking of one of those one-year deal, Mikes, the Steelers this week moved forward with signing embattled former Washington football team quarterback Dwayne Haskins, signed with that 1 year, no incentives, no nothing deal. So, obviously that would signal to most of us that Ben's planning on sticking around. This is kind of a no-loss scenario for the Steelers in my mind. They see what they have in the kid, less than $1 million spend for the year. I think it's a good move for the Steelers. Mike, agree, disagree?
I agree. This is what the Steelers do, man. They find a way out of situations. They always reload. They're never in a rebuild mode, really. They're just great ownership group. They're just consistent. The thing is, you heard Alex Smith talk about Haskins after. He's like, that guy's got all the talent in the world. You just got to make football a priority. Well, Pittsburgh's not a hard place to do that, right? Go there and just play football. Maybe learn a little something from Ben. I know Ben's not always been the guy that has been known to pass on a lot of knowledge and information to backup quarterbacks, but I mean, if you stick around him, you're going to pick up something from the guy that experienced.
Well, and I think it boils down to the organization, Mike. And again, as much as we here in Northeast Ohio want to hate on the Steelers, they're a first-class organization, and they have had a tendency to try to combat that sort of thing. So obviously, it hasn't always worked in the past, and they've been quick to move on from guys like that. You look at Mike Wallace, you look at Antonio Brown, you look at, excuse me, his name escaped me right now, Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
So, they've been quick to move on from these guys. Either it's going to work out and they can see some potential, or they're gone. I mean, they moved on from guys at the top of their game because of that. So, there's a place he can go and maybe revive his career. You're right. I think Pittsburgh's one of those places that is just a natural fit to do so.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Jesse Ovidio, thanks for popping in. What we're doing, we're talking NFL quarterback carousel.
Yes. Getting our little our little tease, if you will, for later in the show.
Yeah.
So, but Mike, let's jump into the film room, my friend. And this week we're going to do something a little different. We're going to pick our all-rookie teams from 2020, guys that had a fantasy football impact at each position, and kind of why we picked them. So, Mike, I'll start. And, low-hanging fruit here for the quarterback position. Justin Herbert, my friend, through 10 games, he had, Burrow obviously only played the first 10 games. Through 10 games, he had more points and more at every stat: yards, passing yards, passing touchdowns, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. Had better stats than Burrow and Tua through 10 games. And Mike, I would argue with the injuries to Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen being banged up here and there, he had less to do it with. So as far as those two guys are concerned, you can make that argument maybe for Miami, but not really. He had, his number one running back went out, then his number two running back went out. That offensive line's been not great, the last couple seasons. So I think Justin Herbert had a great year, 31 touchdowns, 4,300 yards. He did have 10 interceptions, but 5 rushing touchdowns on top, Mike. Great year for a young guy.
Yeah. And I think with the obvious runner-up here for me, I think Herbert's the number one for sure. I think you go with Joey frickin' Burrow.
Absolutely.
I mean, check the tape. He looked awesome on a absolutely terrible team. He took 32 sacks in 10 games, 3.2 per game. That's pretty rough. And he only threw 5 interceptions. Usually you'd expect to see a lot more interceptions when you're getting that much pressure. In 10 games, just short of 2,700 yards, 13 touchdowns. The nice part is he ran for 142 yards and 3 more touchdowns. And I think this is a really interesting one that we can look at in the next few years that will really help him out. 14 of his 37 run attempts were for first downs. As a fantasy manager, if I can keep my quarterback or my offense on the field, I'm ecstatic. So him extending drives is a great thing.
No, I agree. Yeah. No, and Burrow, I think, with the complete 16-game season, I'm not saying he would have had the same stats as Herbert, but he may have pushed him for it. So
yeah, he wasn't the touchdown pace is where I think he would have missed him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So and to be fair, Mike, the Bengals had a better running game than the Chargers, at least for most of the season until Joe Mixon went down. The Bengals were having a decent success running the ball, and even after he went down, they were having success with guys like Giovanni Bernard. So it wasn't like it was completely unwarranted. Mike, I can't see the chat for whatever reason. I got a gray screen over the chat there.
A gray screen? Let me see what I can do for you. Is that better or no?
No, that's okay. You can let me know if there's.
How about that?
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir. Mike, so let's go through running backs here. My first pick, Jonathan Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. And Mike, he made my team because he had to battle through 2 veterans at the beginning of the season to take over the starting job. You had Marlon Mack and Naheem Hines there that were stealing carries. Hines taking touches really through the end of the season, but he still ended with over 1,100 yards, almost 1,200 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, and 1 touchdown through the air. And Mike, I told a lot of people when the Colts took Taylor, this had Edgerrin James vibes to it as far as what he could do for Indianapolis and what they could look forward to. Because let's face it, Mike, since Edge, they haven't had that guy, right? They've had some decent backs. They've had guys like Brown and Joseph Adai. They've had some decent guys, but they haven't had a guy at the running back position. And I think they have one now, Jonathan Taylor. Big time running back heading into next year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, with Jonathan Taylor, it'll be interesting to see if he can get all the catches like Edge had back in the day.
Right.
But I I think that's absolutely, and I think he actually surprised people because he was splitting carries so much at the start of the season. Just the way he finished was, to me, like indicative of where this guy's career is going. For me, the running back I took, I think this is an obvious one, James Robinson, 237 fantasy points in PPR leagues, 7th best of all running backs. And look, what a steal. This guy is undrafted, and this was through 14 games. He had 1,070 yards, 7 touchdowns. He coupled that with 49 receptions. Gotta love when you can just get a cheap point here and there, whether it's 1.5 for a catch and 5-yard run or 5-yard yak, whatever. I don't care. It's his points at the end of the day. And
we should have had the interns look this up. I'd be interested to know. And James Robinson, we've talked about it on the show, and was probably the free agent pickup of the year, right? Which is something we should consider crowning every season moving forward.
I like that
because nobody drafted James Robinson, and if you did, you're a liar or you're just dumb. He was undrafted. They had. They were going to have issues on that offense. They were a pass-first offense because Leonard Fournette was a shell of himself the year prior. So, I mean, he had to have been one of the better pickups of the year. I'd be really curious to see what I was getting ready to say was I'd be curious to see the amount of leagues where he was actually drafted versus where he was picked up after those first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it was over, 25% or something like that. But I think it also depends on how late the draft happened, how much news they were getting out of it.
Or how deep it was.
Yeah. But look, all 5'9" and 219 pounds of James Robinson, 8 this season. So he was one of my running backs. I'll keep going on my other running back here. We got Myles Gaskin. I was a big fan of him. He was a guy I was able to steal off the waiver wire early on, a 7th-round pick. Look, the Dolphins going into the season, it was like, what a mess. This is not going to be good. New coach, all this good stuff. Look, plays 10 games, 584 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Again, 41 receptions. You're going to see a trend with me with running backs. I like the ones that catch the ball. 388 yards and added 2 more touchdowns. He took the starting job and literally ran with it until he got hurt. He had a great year, and he just rounded out my running backs for the all-rookie team.
Oh, I like that. And my last running back, Mike, and, everything I did when I was doing my research on this screamed James Robinson, right?
Yeah.
But, Mike, I'm going to give you somebody different. I'm going to take Antonio Gibson from the Washington football team. Mike, if you look, he had the same sort of production as Jonathan Taylor and James Robinson on considerably less carries. I believe Robinson had, 240 carries. Taylor had 232. Gibson had 170 carries, Mike. Still had 11 touchdowns, 800 yards, just under 800 yards on the season, while the other two were 1070 and 1100 respectively. So I think, personally, that Washington Redskins line wasn't touted as one of the better lines going into the year. They obviously, grew into that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, another guy that was very unexpected. So, everything told me to go James Robinson here, Mike, but I like Antonio Gibson, and I like him to be a top 6-7 running back next year.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree. Couple things that I love that stands out about him. Does he have the ability to take it the house? So if he does get that perfectly blocked play, is he going to finish the run? Yes, he is an absolute game breaker in that sense. And he was
coming in was a pass catching running.
Exactly. He was supposed to be like a wide receiver running back hybrid. They didn't really know what he was going to do.
Sort of player.
Yeah, and all of a sudden he's doing it between the tackles as well. The future is bright there. He's a guy I was really high on in dynasty leagues. If you could do anything you could to get him, I was pumped about it, and he proved it. This guy really ended up being more than I expected even. So great pick there, Blake.
Appreciate that, buddy. Well, I'll let you start with receivers. Who are your receivers?
All right, so this is a guy that I will pat myself on the back. When we did the whole big draft coverage last year and we were going live and talking about something, this is a guy that pre-draft, into the draft, I couldn't believe that he was going to drop to people. This is Chase Claypool. Look, he fell to the 2nd round in the draft. He's 6'4", and he is insane fast. Look, he's an absolute competitor. We see him being, it seems childish after the Browns beat them in the playoffs, but to me that shows that this guy is a fire, and it's not something you're going to really contain. So he's going to go on, he's going to compete for you every week. Look, he balled out in a loaded draft. He absolutely outshined most other rookie wide receivers. And a lot of them were selected in front of him. So he ended up with 873 yards, 9 touchdowns on 62 receptions. He didn't have a lot of rushes, but he did cash in on them. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground. So 11 touchdowns from a wide receiver. That's a rookie. I'm loving that. we'll see what happens there in Pittsburgh. I think they're going to become a little run heavier. They were so pass happy this season, but he is not the guy I think that hurts. I don't think he's coming off the field. I think he will remain a deep threat. I think he'll be a guy who can mix between deep threat and possession receiver. So I think he's got every piece of he's got all the skills, and he's going to be on the field 3 downs.
No, I love that pick. And yeah, I think there's something to be said. My first receiver, Mike, kind of in that same boat, had a lot of receivers go before him this season. Guy who was in my Rookie of the Year conversation, that's Justin Jefferson for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Mike, when you start beating records set by Hall of Famer Randy Moss, you make my list.
Yeah.
Obviously, you beat that single season yardage record with 1,400, tacked on 7 touchdowns on 88 catches. Mike, I really think, and this is if as long as Minnesota can either get some, get the same or better production out of Kirk Cousins moving forward, or move on from him, get a good quarterback.
Yep.
Mike, we can see a superstar in the making here. He's got everything that you love to see in a young guy. Runs crisp routes, has the over-the-top speed, great hands. Somebody that, if this team wasn't so run-heavy, obviously, Dalvin Cook was 1A to, Alvin Kamara's 1B, if you want to put it that way. If this team wasn't so run-heavy, Mike, him and Adam Thielen could have been in the top 3 at the end of the day. So, I look at a guy like him to be the next superstar in the making, maybe the next Randy Moss. Who knows?
Yeah, so, I mean, great name to be with, right?
Yep.
Ooh, and I think this is a great transition for you, Blake.
Yes,
Jesse O.
Jesse,
yeah.
Appreciate the comment. What about CeeDee Lamb with backup Andy Dalton? And Jesse, you are right. My other receiver, CeeDee Lamb, and I would make that same argument. I'd argue with Dak Prescott and not Andy Dalton. He would have had just as good of a season as Justin Jefferson or a Chase Claypool. Still had 935 yards, 5 touchdowns on 74 catches. Did tack on that 1 rushing touchdown. Mike, as long as the Cowboys can come back and stay healthy, that 1-2-3 punch of him, Cooper, and Gallup will be very fun to watch. If Gallup ends up sticking around, that'll be a very fun trio. Maybe one of the best ones in the league with a healthy Dak Prescott.
Oh yeah, but if Gallup's gone, I think that means they upgraded at the quarterback position.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into our favorite landing places for quarterbacks. But yeah, to me, that is an offense I want every piece of next year, at least at this point. Hopefully they can secure some offensive linemen and just round the roster out. Exactly.
My favorite tag is your best ability is your availability.
Oh yes. Hey, we could go an episode without us saying at least once, right?
Maybe.
I doubt we ever do. All right, I'm going to go to my second wide receiver here. I have to say my number one, I think he's well above, is Justin Jefferson. But I did not want to pick the exact same ones as you, Blake, so I did end up going with somebody different. I hit another Bengal. T. Higgins out of Clemson had a great season, second-round pick. And he paired well with Joe Burrow. Look, he ends up starting 14 games, had 67 receptions, just short of 1,000 at 908 yards, and he ended up in the end zone 6 times, and that was with Joe Burrow out for 6 games. Now, that run game was good, but they got absolutely terrible quarterback play for the rest of the season once Joe Burrow was out.
Right.
So this is a guy that I'm excited to see paired with Joe Burrow and has them progress together. If they can put some players around them, maybe an offensive line, I don't know. I think the star is very bright for T. Higgins, and he was my second wide receiver on the all-rookie team.
No, I like it, man. And, Mike, I know we wanted to go full roster here, so we'll move on to tight ends. Obviously, these were slim pickings. There was no Rob Gronkowski or a T.J. Hawkinson coming out this season. It was a little light on tight ends heading into 2020. And I'll let you start, Mike. Who is your tight end?
All right, my tight end. That was obviously a tough choice. I went with Harrison Bryant. And this was just mostly because I think his future is bright in the system he's in. Look, I'm a Cleveland guy, and then in Cleveland they're looking at a tight end heavy set. They use 2-3 tight ends all the time, so you're going to see him on the field. And honestly, you see tight ends really seem to grow, and they turn it up years 2 and 3 if they're the real deal. Look, this is he was the top tight end in college in 2019. He played in 15 out of 16 games. He actually started 9 of those 16 as a rookie. That's pretty good. He only had 24 receptions and 3 touchdowns, but almost half of his 238 yards did come in yak, so he is able to move with the ball. I think it's just going to progress more and more as he progresses in his career with that Kevin Stefanski tight end heavy offense.
Yeah, I like that pick, Mike. And, I cheated ahead and I read that you had Harrison Bryant, so I didn't want to double up on him. Mike, I'm going to go with Cole Kmet, the only legit other rookie tight end really prospect this season. He finished with 243 yards, 2 touchdowns on those 28 catches. And, Mike, I really feel that in an offense that, one, didn't really have much consistency this year, and 2, obviously had a veteran like Jimmy Graham in the way at the tight end position, it just wasn't a good opportunity for Kmet this season. But I think the guy has a lot of intangibles. I think he's going to be probably the guy once they do move on from Jimmy Graham. Yeah. And let's just hope and pray that the Bears quarterback situation gets a little better, because it could mean good things for him moving forward. So not a guy I necessarily would draft heading into 2021, but definitely a guy I would keep my eye on if the Bears quarterback situation does change.
Yeah, I could see him being a buy low type player next year, whether it's dynasty, anything like that. If they can get some average to above average quarterback play there in Chicago, he really could come on. I love that we left the tight end position for last. That was definitely the lackluster position for us today.
Not many to pick from there.
They have a little question here in the chat.
Sure, hit me with it.
All right, is Robbie Anderson real? I think yes. I'm just going to go say that right off the bat. He performed well in New York. They didn't have a great team there. He did he did the best he could there, and now they're starting to use him not as just this speed guy who takes the top off. I talked about this mid-season actually, is that they're using him on the underneath routes. They're using him across the middle. They're using him in a bunch of different ways. So they're actually creating plays for him. So I think Matt Rule and Carolina are trying to actually make him their top guy, and I think they're happy with him. The fact that he has other receivers around him helps too, right?
Right, and that wide receiver group is speed, right? They have Moore and Samuel, who can absolutely fly, and so can Anderson. And they kind of put a stopgap in with Teddy Bridgewater, right? Those kind of there just to get us through the year type deal. It remains to be seen if he'll still be in Carolina. Could we see a Cam Newton reunion? Who knows, right? Yeah. But it's one of those things, kind of like we just said with Cole Kmet in Chicago. Robbie Anderson has all of the things you love to see in a receiver. They just got to get somebody to get him the ball. Yeah. So
more consistently, right?
That's right, buddy.
And one more chat question: Will this is a tough one because it's Will right in a row. Will Fuller have any future without Deshaun Watson?
Man, I think it's going to depend on who they bring in. If here's a crazy thing I saw on Twitter right before we went live. It said trade Watson to the Jets, get all those picks, and then trade one of the picks you get for Stafford, and then build with what's left. Crazy scenario, crazy hypothetical scenario, right? Yeah. So if they would do something crazy like that, where they could bring in a bona fide veteran, I think Will Fuller. I don't think Will Fuller has it in him to be a DeAndre Hopkins, right? I think we'd all agree on that. Yeah. But to continue the type of production he's had for the last couple seasons, as long as they bring in somebody that's competent, absolutely. Yeah,
I think the competence is the key here. Honestly, the guy I like there is if they trade him away, they're going to get a haul back. Why not a Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Keep your fans happy because you screwed up and you sent off a franchise quarterback who has the second highest QB rating of all time or something like that. No big deal.
Won the pass title.
What's up? And won the passing title. Yeah, I mean, as a 25-year-old too. So you've got to do something. And then who better than Ryan Fitzpatrick? Yeah, exactly.
And a friendly long-term deal.
Exactly. So you screwed it up hard if you have to trade him. So you need to do something to make people happy. So you got to bring in all these picks, and you got to bring in somebody who's going to at least put some points on the board so people are having fun watching it. Who better than Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I like that. And like I said, I seen that Matt Stafford take right before we went live, and I was like, man, that'd be pretty insane. So,
yeah, my problem with Matt Stafford there is that he's got to okay it. Would you okay that if you're Matt Stafford?
He's from the South.
Yeah? But do you think they have enough pieces? I think he wants to win. I think that man wants to win. Or find out if he's capable of winning.
I think that would have a lot to do with, because does he have a no-trade clause? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he has to okay it. I think it's...
He does, okay. Yeah, Stafford's from Florida, so never mind. Yeah, I don't know.
Does Florida count as the South, or is that a whole different place?
No. Florida, as we called it when I lived and worked down in Miami, is the South of the South. We're south of the South.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love it.
We're south of the South. So.
Okay.
Speaking of Florida, Mike, let's talk a little bit about the Super Bowl, my friend. No games this week, so in lieu of making our weekly locks for daily fantasy sports, let's have a little fun, my friend. Let's do some Super Bowl prop bet locks. And Mike, I'll start. And man, Mike, I've killed it all season in locks, right? But this might be the easiest money I've made the playmakers in the last 2 football seasons, my friend. And that's the negative 200 odds. The minus 200 odds, rather, that the word Belichick will be mentioned at least once during the broadcast. Mike, this might happen in the first 30 seconds of the broadcast.
Oh, there's no doubt. Any downtime, anything like that. If the Patriots, if the Buccaneers are winning, they're going to talk, Brady proving that he can do it without Belichick. I mean, that is, right. I actually, the fact that you found that is mind-blowing to me. I'm betting that. There's 0% I'm not taking that bet. Yeah,
I would 100% lock it in. Mm-hmm. Put it on the list, buddy. That is so happening. It might happen in the first minute of the broadcast.
Because
Tony Romo will be able to help.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Tony Romo, he's not gonna be able to resist. Belichick. Yeah, exactly. He's gonna be all over it. I went with one a little differently. I'm gonna go. It just feels right to me. I think these two teams are gonna have a little back and forth, and it's will either team score 3 unanswered times. If you go with yes, it's minus 175, and no, it's at plus 135. I actually don't think it happens. I don't think anybody scores 3 in a row. If anybody's going to, it's probably the Chiefs.
I don't know, man. That Bucs defense is tough, Mike.
That's why I think there's no chance. Their defense is so good. I think the Chiefs are more likely to get it, and I think that defense is so good and that offense is so good. It's going to be score here this possession, get stuff next possession, go down, kick a field goal, and Brady's going to do enough to get them points. So I just don't see it happening. So I'm a gambler, man. I want to get one of those where if I put down 100, I get that extra money back. So I'm going with they will not score 3 times in a row.
We should put that on a parlay, my friend.
Oh, you would do that with me?
Absolutely.
I'd love it.
Talk after the show.
Okay, let's get it.
Hopefully our wives aren't watching.
Yeah, they're not listening. Don't worry, good.
Because if they were watching, Mike, they would say hell no. So let's get right into hell no, hell yeah, my friend. And Mike, I'll start. We have dealt with COVID-19 all year, my friend. Luckily, it didn't end up costing us the season or anything crazy drastic like that. We did have the one issue with the Broncos quarterback room. We had obviously some players that did miss time even during the playoffs, Mike. So, Mike, I'm gonna let COVID seep into our show, hopefully for the last time, my friend. Hell no, hell yeah. Does at least one player miss the Super Bowl due to a COVID-related policy issue?
Yeah, let's stay positive here, Blake. I'm gonna say hell no.
To the no, no, no. Hell to the no.
I like your positivity.
It's the pinnacle of most players' careers. Not everyone's Tom Brady. This isn't the 10th time they've been there. This isn't just
Tom Brady. This is like finding a quarter in the couch. It's no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal for him. But everyone else, this is it. This is why Fournette comes to Tampa Bay, and knows he's going to share a backfield. This is because he has a shot to put a ring on it. So I'm hoping they can remain disciplined. Yeah, you like that reference?
Right, buddy. It was a halftime show a few years ago, buddy. You're late.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Look, I hope the rest of them can be disciplined for 2 weeks, and we can see the best of the AFC and the NFC square off with full and healthy roster. So I'm saying no.
Good. I like your optimism, my friend. Yep. We'll see what happens. Florida's notorious for being Florida man's state, so we'll see.
Something weird's gonna happen.
Something weird, man. It's always bound to happen down in my second home, FLA. Mike, speaking of Florida, the Bucs quarterback Tom Brady making, like we just said, his 10th Super Bowl appearance, but his first without the aforementioned head coach Bill Belichick. So, Mike, given that this is the same Bucs team that was in the basement last season, Mike, hell no, hell yeah. If the Bucs win, is it time to once and for all say the success in New England was more Brady than Belichick?
Hell no.
To the no, no, no. Hell to the no.
Early in Brady's career, those New England Patriot defenses were just nasty, right? And he was a game manager. He took over for Bledsoe, and he did well. I'm not saying he was like just an average game manager. He was an above average game manager. He has developed into this guy who's absolutely accurate, makes plays when he needs to. At the end of the day, the Patriots look terrible this season because they leveraged their future to win that last Super Bowl, right? They did everything they could, and then they took a shot. Hey, let's go get Cam Newton. And Cam Newton was washed. So look, without Belichick, I don't think you establish that culture that sets up Brady for all that success, and then other great players wanting to join him later in his career, like Junior Seau, things like that, where they're just coming in for a year or two in the twilight of their career, trying to win one. And I think that was more of Belichick, his discipline, and that defense starting it, and then Brady just blew it out the water with being. I mean, he's the GOAT, but I think it was equal. I think Belichick led the way, and I think Brady really drove it home in the end. And I think you can't. It's incomparable to have a quarterback like that on the field, right?
Yeah, no, and the way somebody put it earlier is Belichick got you, printed you off the maps, and Brady drove. I mean, that's really the way to look at it. And I agree, Mike. I think it's a little bit of each, but it will beg that question. So I'd be curious to see what the talking heads have to say.
Yeah, I think give it one or two more years, and I will switch. If Brady somehow sticks out 2 more years, or even if he doesn't, and Belichick just sucks for 2 more years, I would say Brady then. But I want to see it after they've leveraged and they get their talent back in there in New England.
All right, here's a hot one for you. I'll add on. If Bill Belichick gets Carson Wentz and doesn't make the playoffs, was it more Belichick or Brady? And Brady wins another one next year.
So Brady wins it next year.
Brady wins again, wins this year and next year, and the Patriots don't make the playoffs with Carson Wentz.
I think if Brady splits out of the next 2 years, I think they get Wentz and they suck. Like, there's no doubt, right? Like, right. It's a former top pick, basically.
I say that Bill Belichick was to blame, so that's fine.
Okay. At that point, I would blame him. We got a fun question here. From Phantom on YouTube. Thanks for checking us out. If the Browns defense plays good next season, will they be Super Bowl contenders?
I'll take this one, Mike. Being the real, as I've coined myself the last couple weeks, the Cleveland realist at Big Play.
Yes. I'm
gonna say hell yes. Give me the music, Mike. Give me the music. So, anyways, yeah, I absolutely think so. Phantom, you said it was.
Yeah, Phantom.
So yeah, I absolutely think so, Mike. They have the offense that can play. They tweak a couple things. Obviously, Baker gets another year in Kevin Stefanski's system. The problem with the Browns' defense this year wasn't even necessarily their play. They just weren't healthy. You missed Greedy Williams for the whole year. Denzel Ward missed a handful of games. You did have Grant Delpit, who was going to be a big part of that defense. Now, I will say you leave a little something to be desired in the middle 3 to 4. The linebackers do need some work.
They need a lot of improvement there.
So if they can improve the linebacker position and everybody can actually come back healthy, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you're going to have to go through Kansas City no matter what. So you have to have a defense in order to combat that.
So what I'm gonna nitpick here, and I'm gonna say if they play good defense, no, they are not Super Bowl contenders. If they play great defense, they are contenders. They need to upgrade, and they need to make
a top 5 defense. You can play with the Chiefs.
Yep. That's the only way, and then you can control the ball on offense, similar to they do. It's just you do it in a different way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great question, Phantom. Thanks for the question. Yeah, all right, Blake. It's your turn for a little hell no, hell yeah. All right, look, this is a game. We've already started talking about Tom Brady. We're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes, GOAT, all that. Let's put the quarterback hype aside. Let's look at 2 legends at the tight end position.
Okay.
There is a prop bet, and it's pretty big, but hell no, hell yeah. Would you ever take Rob Gronkowski at plus 560 to have more yards than Travis Kelce at minus 1667 in the Super Bowl?
Oh, hell no.
Hell no.
I feel like I should just... Should I buzzer myself for that question?
Yeah. No. And Mike, I think it's got little to do with Gronk himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's more just the way these two offenses play.
Yeah.
That offense runs through Travis Kelce, right? Yeah. Whether that's in the short game or even the intermediate game, that offense runs through Travis Kelce. The Bucs are a little more traditional with it. They run the ball really well. They play good defense. The passing game's kind of a complementary piece, right? And not to say they're a stellar running team. Don't get me wrong. They weren't tops in the league in running, but they pound the rock 3 yards in a cloud of dust and play good defense. That's how they've won all season. And then you let Brady take advantage of those situations that are set up because of the run game. So, no. If you'd asked me this question 8 years ago, I would say Goff. Absolutely. Okay. But today, just because of how these two teams are set up, and Travis Kelce, you won't hear me say that Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end of all time yet. I still think it's Rob Gronkowski, but it's coming soon.
It's close, right?
It could be coming very soon.
Yeah. So. Do you think it's more likely that Kelce has over 15 targets?
It's more likely that he'll have over 15 targets?
Yeah. Then Gronk out having more yards than Kelce.
Man, that's a great question. I would say no. I don't think it's more likely.
Okay.
I just think there's a natural progression, and obviously, you want to get your ball into the hands of the guys that are electric, like a Tyreek Hill and a Mecole Hardman, and those sort of guys, even a Pringle.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. I think that Kelce's going to get his burn, as we like to say on the show, and they're my pick to win next Sunday. So.
Okay. All right. Early prediction there. All right.
Yep.
All right, Blake. If for some reason you had to play this game without the head coaches, I wanted to go with the big hypothetical here.
Okay.
Hell no, hell yeah. Would you rather have Kansas City's coordinators over Tampa Bay's? I'll spell this out for the playmakers here. We have Kansas City, you have Eric Bieniemy and Steve Spagnuolo on the defensive side there. And in Tampa Bay, you have Byron Leftwich at offensive coordinator, Todd Bowles at defensive coordinator, and Harold Godwin. He's the run game / assistant head coach. Would you rather, hell no, hell yeah, would you rather have Kansas City's coordinators over Tampa Bay's?
Hell yes. And that's because of the 5 names you just named there. They have the closest thing to a head coach in Eric Bieniemy. I thought he should have had a job last season somewhere, and I really expect him to have a job here in the next 3 weeks after the Super Bowl. So it's one of those things. And if he doesn't, there's some serious soul searching that needs to go on in NFL front offices around the league, because Eric Bieniemy, don't get me wrong, Andy Reid is great, but Eric Bieniemy is the glue that holds that offense together. So I would absolutely take the Chiefs offensive coordinator, just Bieniemy by himself, just to run the team. So then don't get me wrong. The other thing to look at too with this question, Mike, a lot of experience on the KC side, right? Steve Spagnuolo has been around the block a few times, so it's not like they have some nobody coordinators. And not to say that the Tampa Bay coordinators are nobodies, but Byron Leftwich, a younger coordinator. Todd Bowles obviously was with the Jets for a while, didn't work out as a head coach. Now he's down in Tampa, so they have some experience, but I think the experience and just the overall skill on the Kansas City side is just ahead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think you'll start to see that coaching, the will, the how do I want to put this? The desire to win and being unafraid to call the risky play. Look, we saw it where they threw a pass with Henne. That's going to rub off. And Spagnuolo, he's shown he will bring it. He doesn't matter. He's going to dial it up just to get you out of your rhythm and do what he has to do to win it. So I sit with you as well in the Kansas City Chiefs coordinators here. I like your pick. Great. Blake,
man.
Thanks.
Sweet. Well, Michael, we teased it earlier in the show when we talked about Adam Schefter's over half the league changing quarterbacks tweet. And what I wanted to do, Mike, is go into our offseason. We usually do a head coach coaching carousel. Let's do a quarterback carousel, Mike. So what I'd like us to do is each pick 3 quarterback changes we could see happening and possible candidates to fill those roles heading into 2021. And Mike, I'll start low hanging fruit here. The New York Jets, Mike, is a quarterback position I expect to change. They obviously have the most draft capital to go and win the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes.
Yeah.
And have easily the best situation for him as far as, bringing in kind of a guy that would mesh well with him, with Mike LaFleur on that offense. So, I think the Jets are a natural fit for that. They don't have many weapons they could surround him with right now. They have a guy that's a senior citizen at running back. They got, a guy that's underperforming at tight end. one good receiver, and that's about it. So they would definitely have to build around him, but definitely a change I expect to see made, most likely with Deshaun Watson, if it is to change. Mike, the second team, and this is one I had to think about for a little bit, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. Uncle Phil obviously has hung them up, which means that the Colts will have to acquire their next signal caller via trade or free agency because they drafted 21st overall. And Mike, they have all their draft picks this season. They have all 7 in its natural habitat, if you will, at 21. And a move for Matthew Stafford makes a lot of sense here, Mike.
Yeah.
They got a great running game right now, a stellar offensive line. Obviously, that defense is top 5, if not better. And they could add another weapon with whatever picks they have left over to give Stafford that extra ammo. So I definitely see if the Colts could somehow swing a Matthew Stafford trade, I definitely could see them making another deep run here in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is set up to win right now.
And that's just the thing, man. And it's a similar situation that many teams have right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers are our team that has a win-now defense and decent weapons, but needs that quarterback. So it's one of those things where we're just going to have to see how they navigate those waters.
Yep.
So,
hey, Blake, we're going to ask this a new viewer. Thank you for checking us out. Are we live daily? No, we go every Tuesday night.
yep.
Maybe eventually we'll go daily, but right now we're just Tuesday nights, 9:30. We are on Twitter all the time. Blake is really active on it. He does a great job. Hit us up there. Pretty much anywhere you can, hit us up at Big Play Blake. You can see it right under that head of his and under mine as well.
Yep. Appreciate the new viewer.
Yeah, thanks,
Mike.
Jesse.
We just mentioned charting, navigating uncharted waters. Speaking of the beach, let's go down to Miami, my friend. For whatever reason, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago when they first started popping up. These reports keep pouring out of Miami that they're not set on Tua. I can't figure it out. You can't figure it out. But for the sake of argument, let's just say they want to move on from Tua Tagovailoa. Mm-hmm. Mike, this is the only team with comparable draft capital to the New York Jets. If you look, they have the number 3. They have a top pick from their trade with Houston, and obviously they have their pick in the first round. So doubling up on first round picks naturally would be the best case scenario as far as winning now for Deshaun Watson, which is why he listed them number 2 on his list. I think the Jets is more of a, hey, I can go there and build my own thing. The Dolphins were his next pick because, hey, I can go there and win right now.
Yeah.
The question becomes, Mike, do they mortgage the future, and do they mortgage the here and now and go get Watson?
Yeah.
Sure, right? Makes a lot of sense. 25-year-old quarterback, just won the passing title, team-friendly extension that just got signed, great situation. The other thing is, do they move anything for a guy like a Matthew Stafford?
Yeah.
And mortgage the future for 30, he'll be 33 on the day of the Super Bowl, Matt Stafford will be. Do they mortgage the future on a guy like that who has had injury issues? So, that's the other thing to consider with Watson is he stayed, knock on wood, relatively healthy. So, if the Miami Dolphins are going to make a change, Mike, in my opinion, it's Deshaun Watson or don't make a move at all.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Because I don't think that any of the quarterbacks coming out, with the exception of Trevor Lawrence, puts you in an immediate better situation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
that's even from a guy wearing an Ohio State hoodie.
You like Justin Fields, yes. I think the thing for me here is that's really standing out is Matthew Stafford and I think could be a key person this offseason, right?
It's going to be the major chip that has to fall to see where everything else lands. And it's something that's going to have to happen before the draft.
Yeah, because I think the Lions are going to get a good haul for him, but it's not going to be what Watson's going to pull, right? So everyone's going to see what he pulls in, and because he is only, $22 million and $20 million the next 2 years, it's vice versa. It's 20 then 22, I think. It's not that bad, and in a year where cap room's a big deal, I think that locks you 2 years. Hey, if you're a win now team, that gives you 2 years at least in your window, and maybe you can extend it or figure something out in that third year if you're still solid. And one of those teams that I think is in that could be in a win now situation, especially in this conference, is the Washington football team. They have an awesome defense, right? And for like a guy like Matthew Stafford, then he stays out of the AFC with all those young guns of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Then you look at who they have, like the Washington football team. They can trade the 19th pick and a few second rounders to the Lions, and it doesn't feel like that's way too much to get a guy for the next 2 years that's a top-tier quarterback, right? Above average at least. And you have the pieces around him in McLaurin and Gibson, as we've already talked about. Yeah, so that is, I think the Washington football team's one that really feels nice there. If they don't land Stafford, I think they've got to go land one of the young free agents. The Jameis Winston, who maybe Dak Prescott. I would love to see there. This is
an insane story that would be. Dak Prescott goes from Dallas to Washington. Whew.
Yeah, but he's free agent, right? If I was, he might be salty. He might be salty. He might be salty. I don't know. All right. Okay. All right. Then we'll move on to Dak's former team. I think it's going to be his former team at the end of this whole thing, the way it played out with his health and everything. I think the Cowboys end up looking at Matt Stafford as well. There's another guy here I think that could fit, but I think the offense, again, same thing. Offensive talent. I think Matthew Stafford could do a ton with it. He has a better offensive line than he's used to playing with. And why wouldn't they do it? They have 2 years to make it happen right now. Again, a weak conference. So, if you can land that sweepstakes and outcompete the Washington football team for Matthew Stafford, I mean, you have the 10th pick, so you can outcompete him there. So you could, and then this is where I was saying earlier. There's talks, and this is one place for Stafford that's leading, is because they can ship that first pick. And then they can also add a Michael Gallup. They can add a couple pieces. Whereas we were talking, if Kenny Golladay can get another receiver to help him out there,
we did talk about that last week.
It's a good wide receiver room now. So I think the Cowboys could help the Detroit Lions out with that earlier pick. They could give them a wide receiver, help them build their future, and then Stafford's in a win-now situation, which is what he wants. So I could see that happening. And as you said, he's a Southern boy. I know you said Florida, but South is South. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting place. I think the Cowboys end up with a different quarterback. I think the Washington football team definitely ends up with a different quarterback. And I think San Francisco is the third one. Now, this one is one where I've been looking at it. It's a little more out there. But look, Garoppolo right now with that $180 million cap is taking up 14% of their cap. And if they thought he was the guy, they would have already extended him and given themselves some more room. Right. And they just haven't done it, right? So...
Well, he signed a pretty big extension when he first got there, didn't he?
Yeah, so he did, but I'm saying now, they would have restructured him in the last year or two.
God, has he been there that long? Good Lord.
He's only been there 3 years? This is third year?
So third or fourth.
Yeah. So the point of the matter is that I think if they wanted him, they would have put him on a more friendly deal for them so they could bring in more talent. Because that defense, I mean, there's no better defensive line. The stat out there about how Nick Bosa has the most pressures in the last 2 seasons compared to Frank Clark, Frank Clark just doubled it, or just tied it, and twice the amount of games. So that defense is set up to win now. That offense has been consistent, and they've done it with terrible to average quarterback play. Garoppolo being the average, terrible being the backups. So I could see them moving. I love a Dak Prescott here after you trade or do something to Garoppolo, and the Patriots might be willing to take Garoppolo on. Belichick they were tutor him. Yeah, so there's the rumor out there as well. If not, Dak Prescott, say he lands in Washington or he lands somewhere else, stays in Dallas, Jameis Winston, or actually a guy who doesn't terribly match up is Mitch Trubisky. He's a decent runner, that outside zone, a lot of reading. They could use Trubisky well. I like him with Shanahan. But why not? If you bring Jameis or Trubisky, this is the guy I think you really like to look at, is also see if you can snag Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think there's a lot of options out there if they get rid of Garoppolo, and I'm thinking that they might be done with him.
Wouldn't mind seeing Matt Stafford on the West Coast either. So
that'd be an interesting play there. I don't know if he do you think he sits in that? Does he fit that offense?
They got a handful of good running backs. They improved that offensive line by adding Trent Williams. So yeah, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. With that defense, he wouldn't have to go and put up, the one thing that's been consistent across much of Matthew Stafford's career is he's had to go outscore teams. Their defense hasn't been that great over the years, and that's something he wouldn't have to do out there. He wouldn't have to, all of the responsibility wouldn't land on him.
Yeah, so, that's true.
Which I think is what he's looking for.
Yeah, and you look at Tom Brady. This is where I think he is okay with playing on a good defense and throwing when he needs to and making the plays he wants. Hey, there's a question here. They'd love to hear us discuss our opinions on the Denver Bronco Drew Lock situation. Could we see a new leader under center? Could we? Yes.
I am a notorious Drew Lock, I don't want to say hater, but I definitely don't feel Drew Lock's a great quarterback. I didn't like the pick when they took him a couple years ago. Now, great guy. We interviewed him at the Hall of Fame a couple years ago when they were here in Canton. And nice kid. Definitely think he's got a future in the NFL. Future as a star quarterback? Don't think so.
Yeah. I think the thing that's interesting here is the Broncos have the 9th pick. If they decide they want to move on, they have a piece to trade away. He is young. He's athletic. I think he's a little too green for me. I don't think he understands how to lead a bunch of men around in the NFL. I think we saw that just with some bad decisions this past season, and I could see where the Broncos ownership group decides to make a change. And the thing with the Broncos is, going into the season, I loved that defense. I was all in on it. I thought it was great. And then they just got hurt. And then they got hurt. And they got hurt. And it just kept happening. So they might be the team that quietly is not as far away as people realize. And the 5-11 record this past season doesn't, indicate that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, buddy. So, well, my good show, my friend. As always, guys, be sure to give us a follow over on Twitter at WTW_podcast. That's where the show goes live each and every week on Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, you can give us a follow on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music as well. We are available on all of your major podcast streaming platforms. You can give me a follow over on Twitter at BigPlayBlake. Michael is at BigPlayBeats. Beats. Anything else for the Playmakers, buddy?
Don't forget to follow Blake's Twitch. He's gaming all the time. He's doing that. Give him some love. Other than that, thanks for checking us out.
Win last night, Madden.
Ooh, so, can I hear about it? Tell me about it.
Okay, I'll give you the 30-second synopsis. So,
okay.
was getting my what handed to me.
Okay.
And I was getting pretty frustrated. Well, you're gonna love this because we're in year 4 of this franchise.
All right.
And I had a rookie quarterback who I threw 4 picks in the first half with.
Ugh.
He's not very good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I took this team over a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Not very good, so I took him out. Against the Bucs, I'm the Falcons, by the way. Against the Bucs, divisional opponent, fighting with these guys for division positioning. And who's my backup quarterback, Michael? I'm going to give you one guess.
Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill, my friend, comes in.
Let's go.
Leads us down the field 3 different drives. So we score, and the guys that watched my stream were dying. The chat was blowing up when this happened. So get down. Guy gets it down to it was 12 seconds to go. He throws a prayer to Mike Evans.
Okay.
Gets down to my 6. 12 seconds to go. So what would your play call be in that situation?
All right, you're down 6. You're on the 12?
No. He's on my 6. 12 seconds left.
Sorry.
And he was down 3.
Does he have any timeouts?
No timeouts left. He did go out of bounds at the 6. So time had stopped at 12 seconds.
Time stops. Down by 3.
12 seconds. No running clock. 12 seconds. Down by 3 on the 6.
And I'm the offensive coordinator. I'm calling the play.
You're the head coach of the Bucs.
I'm taking a shot at the win. I am in Madden. I'm trying to get my best receiver one-on-one with somebody and hope my best receiver can make a play.
Unfortunately for this gentleman, Michael, he ran an RPO and didn't realize you can't throw it away out of an RPO. Running back falls to the ground.
Game over? What?
Game over. So, yeah. So,
I have the question. If he threw the RPO, were you going to pick it?
If he would have thrown the pass?
Yeah, if he actually just throws it. Does it fall incomplete?
It was in a lot of traffic. So
okay. Wow.
A lot of traffic.
I honestly, I don't think you can take it.
Actually, if he'd have thrown the RPO, I think I had my defense adjusted to swat ball, so the ball would have probably been swatted.
Okay, so at least throw it.
Then he would have kicked field goal.
Yeah, I wouldn't make that call.
He thought he could throw it away out of the back of the end zone, and it won't let you in an RPO. So,
you gotta know that.
I digress, buddy.
I appreciate that. Congrats on the win.
Appreciate it. Go give us a follow over on Twitter at WTW_podcast. Go give our mothership account a follow at BigPlay_com. That's where all of our great shows go out each and every week. Monday we have the Yacht Club, Big Play Cleveland Reflog show with our head guy Big Play Dave and Chris Reflog McNeil. Tuesdays, Birdland BS guys are on right before us here on Working Wire. Wednesdays, Padone My Take with Nick Padone talking all things Cleveland. We could talk about my meltdown today when I thought they were going to trade Jose Ramirez to the Braves. Thursdays, we have In the Backfield with Peyton Hillis, former Browns running back, and on Sundays, Voice of the Land. So, appreciate you guys checking out the stream. Shout out to our new followers. Please tell all your friends. Give us a share, like, a follow. We appreciate it.